Hello and welcome to Talk About Drama, where we talk about what's hot and what's not in the drama world. And I cannot believe I'm watching another TRT1 drama after Masum Nar Apartment, but here we are, I guess. But at least, it's been fast paced, at least for the first 5 or so episodes. And I actually am rooting for all of the couples, which is a pleasant change from like my previous shipping history. So, plus, I think the fact that it was the story of a child that really drew me into this, which was kind of the reason why I started watching Yabani in the first place, because it's the story of a child over here, especially where Eleni is looking for her parents, especially her birth mother, and she's longing to have that feeling of maternal affection, of love from her loved ones. And looking for that, she comes to Trabzon and meets all kinds of fortunes and misfortunes. And I think the first 5 episodes were so well done. It kind of felt a little, I'd say, slow, especially episode 6 onwards, because I mean, I get it. If you're putting out episodes which are upwards of like 2 hours every single week, there's bound to be a time when you need to scale back a little and let things simmer for a while, because you can't always have things moving along every single episode. There's bound to be a point where there's going to be a little bit of stagnation, because you have to build the characters along with the story. But the problem with the stagnation over here is that you're not really building up the characters. You're just layering stuff on top of them. Like, okay, in the first 5 episodes, there was a scene where Eleni finally had her first piece of good food in Trabzon, and Adil was sort of getting her to talk about how she had slapped Oruç and telling her that, you're here to find your mum, not find a new love interest. And Eleni was scandalized. Well, so. But it highlighted the fact that, these are people outside of the character setup that they've built. It's not all melodrama. It's not all high stakes situations. Sometimes you just got to sit around and have a talk. Like, absurdly so, in one of the recent episodes where Amirum Dai had Gökhan pulled behind a horse, trying to get a confession out of him. And when he didn't confess about the gun that they were hiding, he brought him to the Furtunas to get him fixed up. When he was taking him out back again to like get him tortured, he told to Oruç that, don't feel neglected. We're going to come to you, but this one's a little bit more urgent, so we're just going in order. And I think one of these absurd things that happen in between, it's one of the reasons why I can't move away. And I like the way they've built up characters, because there's some people you do feel a little bit, kind of a shred of humanity in them, and then some of them are completely irredeemable, but you can actually see where they're coming from. But I think the biggest strength of the drama is the bonds that they've built between Adil and Eleni. Because I remember during the first few episodes when Eleni was asked, why are you doing in Trabzon? You're a doctor and you have such a high IQ. You've had such a good education. What are you doing over here? And Eleni didn't tell Oruç anything. But when faced with Adil, the first thing that she said was, I'm here to find my mum. Because that was the level of trust that she'd built with this man, that she'd treated more than the trust that she'd built with the man who helped her treat this person. As the kind of comfort that she felt with Adil first, and then Esme as well. Because in the beginning, I think there was a little bit of skirmish between Esme and Eleni over Adil and the whole thing. I think they warmed up to each other. And from the point Esme knew that, Eleni was her daughter, the whole thing was pretty much like straightforward. She is protecting her, and she has been protecting her from day one. It's just she's much more aware of who she's protecting now. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Adil as well once he finds out, which I think is going to break my heart a little, because at the moment, Oruç knows, pretty much the entire Furtuna family knows, and if Iso and Fadime do end up getting married, Iso is probably going to tell Fadime at some point that the reason why I'm marrying you, or the reason why we're putting on this entire show, is because Eleni is Adil's daughter. She is your niece, I think. And because we want to pull Sheriff into this game and he cannot gain the upper hand. Otherwise, if things go south, your brother's going to go into jail, or Esme's going to go into jail, and your brother's going to go mad again. And the whole thing's going to repeat itself. So you come marry me and we can save the entire Koçari family. So technically Fadime would also know. I think if they're going with that, then Issa would definitely tell Fadime that in order to convince her. And Esme's already told Gezep. Gezep's twin also knows, because Ilve herself performed the paternity test, so obviously she knows. And Esme has known for a long time now. So the only person in dark technically in the Koçari family is Adil. It's going to hurt him so bad because his daughter is right in front of him and nobody's told him. And I'm pretty sure at some point Eleni is also going to know that I'm Adil's daughter, but then she's going to hide it because she's very much against bloodshed, but she's also more against Adil paying the price for something that the Furtunas did. And to protect Adil, basically, she's going to lie to him again. And it's going to hurt Adil's feelings so bad because, he's going to accept her. Of course, he's already accepted her as his daughter. But I think the whole thing is going to hurt so much when the whole thing comes out and Adil finds out and he's the last person to know the truth. And he's probably going to feel a little bit betrayed. More so, because the people closest to him didn't say anything. Because in Esme's case, Esme was alone in enemy clan and she had to protect that one person, that little child that she was carrying inside of her. The Koçaris probably weren't as powerful as they are today, and the Furtunas had more pull towards what would happen. And Adil was inside, so the only thing that Esme could technically do was marry the Furtuna family's head and try and get through this pregnancy and have the child. And everything that comes may come, we'll figure it out. But for now, the priority was the child's safety. But the whole thing aside, I really liked the fact that they built up the story in a way who's related to who, because like for example, Elene's habit of not leaving things behind is the same as her aunt's. Like Father picked up Elene's phone when she was rescued after being kidnapped. And then Adil's jacket when they picked him up from the clinic after he was shot. Elene's bag too, I believe, when they were picking her up. And then when Eleni and Adil were running away from the attackers on the beach, Eleni picked up the gun. So they know how to pick up the important things. The same goes for Isa and the Furtunas. Because what are the odds that Isa Furtuna and Shirin Furtuna use the exact same way to get secrets out of Sheriff Furtuna's mouth? And Sheriff did fall for it the first time, but the second time he was like, I see what you're doing there and I don't like it. But now that I think about it, I think the longest running secret in the drama is probably Fadime not knowing that Isa was the one who ultimately ended up saving her goats, because nobody had the antidote and Eleni was out with Oruç trying to find traces of her mum in Istanbul, and Fadime phoned Isa and he unsuccessfully tried to find the antidote. He couldn't, and then he spoke to Oruç, who eventually ended up calling Adil and convinced him to not fall for Sheriff's tricks, and he and Eleni basically worked together to get the antidote for the goats. So technically it was Isa Furtuna that helped Fadime get the antidote, and I think Fadime still doesn't know that. And it's it's probably the longest running secret in the drama at this point, because it's amazing that no matter how many secrets, big or small, come across, they get resolved within probably the episode itself or the next episode. Because I remember when Sevcan hit Eleni on the back of her head during her jealousy crisis, Esme obviously got to know about it by watching the video, and Zarife tried to threaten her with that information, and the next moment Esme literally stormed to her house and slapped Sevcan around and just blurted out the entire truth to her family. I think the longest secret, apart from like the goat thing, has been the Ilvi switching paternity test results thing, which unfortunately Bali got to know first, and then Esme obviously got to know about it. So what I'm saying is they don't stretch it out over a couple of episodes, because I was sure Zarife was going to hold the whole Save John thing over Esme's head for like a couple of episodes. Easy. But that didn't happen. I think one of the things that I was for sure thinking they were going to drag it out for like the next 10 episodes was Eleni being Adil and Esme's daughter would probably be revealed to Esme by like episode 8 or 9, and then Adil by like episode 20, 21. Because this is pretty much the foundation of the entire story. And, once the secrets start come out, like this is the biggest one of them all. The sea is going to overflow and basically drown everyone, the Koçaris and the Furtuna, in the waves. And then Esme got to know about it pretty early on. And what surprised me the most was Oruç putting together the pieces and immediately going and confronting his uncle about it. Like, it could have been a private conversation where the Furtunas don't know. Zarife obviously knows, Hicran knows, but Shirin Furtuna doesn't know, Isa Furtuna doesn't know, and it's basically eating him on the inside. But the first thing that he did was he confronted his uncle in front of the entire Furtuna clan, sans Esme. And so basically the entire Furtuna family knew that Eleni was Adil and Esme's daughter, and Sheriff was the one who sold her. Although I think he probably knows that his mum helped with the transaction and the entire thing, but he's in denial at the moment, and he just doesn't want to think about it, because if he does, it means admitting his mum committed such a vile and inhuman act with this person who's been with him since childhood and has probably been there for him growing up, and then he's helping his mum get away with it because she's his mum and she's the only person kind of left in his life, because his granddad and his dad were like killed by the Koçaris, which I honestly don't think is the case, because I think and I'm pretty sure Sheriff Furtuna is capable. He murdered his own dad and his own brother because they were against him marrying Esme, or they were against him going after Esme, and he basically got rid of all of the roadblocks in his path and set it up in the way that the Koçaris would be blamed for it. So Adil would go away, his family would go away and away from Esme, and he would reap the benefits of like having this girl, because he's obviously had his designs on Esme for a long time, and Esme worked in the Furtuna mansion, so he's probably seen her around and fallen in love with her at first glance. Like, I would not be surprised. Esme is pretty, and I think it's the way it's completely opposite of Adil's love, where he's happy to be existing in the same space as her. To him, love is not about belonging. To him, love is about being together. But also, on the other hand, he's happy that she's happy, she's safe, and he's happy just to see her, even though it's slowly breaking him down. Her happiness matters more than his own. Whereas with Sheriff, it's more like, yes, her happiness matters, but not as much as his own satisfaction of being there with her. I think it's a nice contrast, but it is a little bit terrifying, because apparently at this point, Sheriff seems to be the one with the highest IQ among all of them. And the whole plan to take down Sheriff is probably not going to work out the way they think it's going to be. And I mean, I did read the OZ for episode 13, and apparently Iso, Uruch, and Adil are going to team up to take down Sheriff, and it's the reason why Iso and Fatima are going to indirectly end up getting married or getting engaged or putting on a show. I don't know. I hope they get married, but I would like to see the full preparations. Unlike Akta's wedding, which just happened, which really pissed me off, because I really wanted to see Eleni being involved in the marriage preparations, because for her, it's probably a new thing, the new customs. Like, you've got the henna night, you've got the engagement night, you've got different kinds of traditional ceremonies happening, and they're also colourful, they're also beautiful, and it would have been nice for Eleni to participate and have her own taste of the Trabzon culture. Maybe they have some ceremonies that are unique to that place, and you know, as a bride, you'd have to go through certain traditional ceremonies, and it would have been nice to see like Eleni's side from like witnessing a girl getting married in Trabzon and how it feels like, and you know, her thinking that maybe my mum went through the same thing when she got married, and you know, feel closer to basically her roots. Like, I'm just saying, it would have been nice, and I think I would probably riot along with the Isfat fandom if they don't show me Fatima getting married with all the traditional customs and ceremonies. Like, yes, they can be like, oh, we've registered our marriage, but I want Adil to insist on having proper traditional marriage between the both of them, like following all of the traditions, because I want to see them as a family, as they're probably going to put Iso through hell with the whole thing. It's such a nice contrast though, because in the first few episodes, Sheriff gave an order that, you know, Iso would kidnap Fatima for the piece of land, and Iso followed without a second thought. He's like, okay, I will kidnap this one person. And you know, he knew exactly how to lure Fatima into the trap and make sure that she would come alone, which I think is a little bit it's my own conspiracy theory, but I'm pretty sure Iso had something for Fatima, but then the whole Furtuna and Koçari thing came in between, and he basically abandoned it, because when Iso kidnapped Fatima, and you know, he was with his brother in the morning torturing Behcet in the ambulance, and then he was walking away, Oruç was asking like, who are you going to join for breakfast? And Iso didn't say anything. He just smiled and walked away, and it kind of gave a vibe that, you know, Iso is a bit of a ladies' man. He's very popular with the ladies, which I do not doubt. I'm pretty sure both the brothers are more popular with the ladies, but Oruç a little bit less, because he's more no-nonsense, and it probably scares off the ladies a little bit more than Iso, who's more suave and probably easy to get along. Coming back to the point, Fatima and Iso, or Iso probably had something with Fatima, and because if I remember, Irfan and Fatima weren't dating, like technically they only went on to drink chai or something, and that's the only connection that Irfan and Fatima had, and Iso knew about it. He knew who to target, and you can only know that when you've been watching a person for a while. And when he did kidnap Fatima, he caressed her hair, especially her braids. Like, he knew the significance of her hair, and Fatima felt so disgusted after the whole encounter that she literally chopped off her hair. Like, I would rather die than keep the hair that you've touched. Probably his mum, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's related to Iso as well, because when Zarife was cutting Fatima's hair to like present as a ransom to Adil, Iso was well uncomfortable, but he didn't speak out, which I'd still hold it against him. But I think from the promo materials, Iso was said to be more like his uncle. And I think it's probably true. He is more like his uncle, but in an opposite kind of a way, because his uncle loves Esme to the point of madness. And I think that's probably going to be with Iso, who's going to love Fatima to the point of madness. And for him, it's going to be to protect Fatima from this person. And I think that's going to be a point of contention between Iso and Fatima, because Irfan is probably going to butt his nose into the whole thing, and that's going to rub Iso the wrong way, because in one hand he's like, I'm protecting your brother and your family, and on the other hand it's like, that's my wife, stay away from her. And there's going to be the whole Koçari and Furtuna thing. So I think in a way, because Iso is kind of like a silent killer, because if you think about it, Oruç is someone who confronts people directly. He always speaks his mind. Like, he's always attacked Adil. When he even went into Adil's house, he attacked Adil about making passes at his sister-in-law. It was Esme is still technically married to Sheriff and his sister-in-law. Issa would never do that. Like, Issa in front of Sheriff protected Father May. Then he didn't attack Sheriff, which he could have done very easily. But Issa is someone who's known to stay in the background and observe the situation more than actually do anything, which I think it's kind of sweet and funny, because especially if there's a scene going on, like Zarife and Oruç were going at it, talking about the upcoming wedding with Sevcan, where Zarife was like, you can't marry her because you obviously love Eleni and we need Eleni for protection. And then Oruç was like, are you even hearing yourself? And Issa was in the background just giving reactions. And I think it's because Issa, being the second child, has been more in the shadows, whereas Oruç is more of a golden boy who can do no wrong. So Oruç has been given more, I would say, courage to speak up, to speak freely, whereas Issa is more of a person who stays in the background, who observes the situation before making a comment on it. He's not proactive, but he does get the job done. Like, I remember when Oruç and Eleni came back from Istanbul and Adil, Father May and Eleni went to the plateaus to find Bali, well, her grandmother. And they, along with Gezip, were surrounded by the Furtuna's henchmen, along with Gökhan. And Issa literally burst into the scene. And when Oruç initially told Gökhan to put the gun down, or else they would call the police, and Gökhan was like, you're for sure bluffing, because you would protect the Furtunas first, because you're the next head, and you would obviously not harm your own family. And then Eleni tricked them into thinking, the police is coming, when Gökhan was still conflicted about whether to leave or not. And then Issa was like, Gökhan, when they, like, it's on me, I will take care of it, get out. That's when Gökhan finally put the gun down and ran away. So it's clear that, everybody in the Furtuna family have had more interactions with Issa, probably more than Oruç, because Oruç, being a doctor, is demanding. Like, he had to be out for his studies. He had to be out for his internship for practicing medicine. And I think it's probably because of the whole burden of being the Furtuna's head on his head that he probably ran away from the house and decided to become a doctor, because he was sick and tired of his mum putting him on a pedestal. And then the whole thing fell on Issa's shoulder. And you can see that Issa is more familiar with the people around him. And, he's more of his mum's shadow, because he's been around his mum more than Oruç, who wanted to become independent and something on his own in order to deserve the title of being the next leader of the Furtunas. Whereas for Issa, it was more like, you're going to help your brother build up this whole thing. And it's nice to see the bonding between the both of them, because they both understand the burden on their shoulder. And they're both okay with shouldering it together in their own ways. The first thing like Oruç did after Issa came out from his medically induced coma was info dump him and catch him up on things, because he was so happy to have his conversation partner, his little brother, his second half back. He couldn't wait to share the news with him, and then Issa was literally sitting there like, oh my god, brother, what are you talking about? I think that's probably why I would love to see a scene where Oruç and Issa are kids and they're running around the house. Zarife is probably out of her mind from grief, and Esme steps in and helps out around the house. I think that's kind of where Esme's bonding with the Furtuna boys comes in, because Esme, being a young bride who's just lost her child, would have probably acted and felt more like a reliable older sister around the house for Issa and Oruç. And later on, she became a pillar in the Furtuna family. That, it got to a point where when Eleni and Adil was stranded, Issa saw them through the drone, and his mum explicitly told Issa not to tell anybody, but he did tell Esme through a text message later on, and he distracted everybody in order to give Esme a chance to escape and rescue them, because he knows that she feels something about them. And when Oruç got to know that Eleni is Esme's child, it was eating on the inside, but Esme told him, it's all right, I don't blame you for protecting your family. And you can see that it ate him up on the inside to not say that I'm sorry, Yenge, I'm sorry for deceiving you this entire time. And I think it's kind of backfiring on them a little now, especially because we don't know much about Oruç and Issa, especially Oruç, because so far in the first few episodes, Oruç was the good guy who had a grey side to him. Like, he was more than happy to let Adil die of injuries, but he only saved him because Esme would go into jail otherwise. So he did put in the effort, but it wasn't like, I'm going to save this person because I'm a good guy. It was more like, I'm going to save this person so that my Yenge doesn't go into jail. And then later on as well, he was happy to help Eleni find her mum, as long as it didn't affect his family, because he thought that, his uncle sold a girl, but he didn't think it was Esme's daughter until he finally started to piece the puzzle together. And the only reason why he probably went the entire way, because he wanted to be sure which side he wants to be on. And that's where the Furtuna family started breaking down, and people had to choose sides. But then Oruç kept going after Eleni, even though he's still engaged to Sevcan. And at the same time, he started being domineering towards Sevcan as well. When Sevcan and Oruç had this conversation where Sevcan was trying to make Oruç understand that, you are okay going out with a girl, but how would you feel like if I started going out with a guy the same way that you're doing with this lady? And then Oruç completely lost it, and he's like, no, you can't do that. And it rubbed me the wrong way. And Uruj being so entitled, going after Adil for calling his yenge his love or whatever, attacking Adil and just like going after people at random, even though he's the one at fault. And then the whole thing with Eleni, where he went to Eleni's house to convince her to come back purely because her coming back would put Alicia on Adil and stop him from destroying his family, but not telling anything about Adil being her dad or like Esme being her mum. It was purely out of his own selfish interest. And it kind of gave me a twisted view of this guy, because I'm not saying make him a good guy. It's fine. He's protecting his family. We all understand that. He still kidnapped Fatima in the beginning and we still ship him with her. But the thing is that we don't know much about this guy beyond what we've seen at the moment. And I don't take the word entitled lightly, but Iso apologized to Fatima after kidnapping her. Like Fatima asked him point blank, I knew you wouldn't be able to face me. You wouldn't be able to look me in the eyes. And the first thing Iso did was, I'm sorry, okay? I couldn't go against my mum, which technically Iso was having the time of his life during the kidnapping thing, but he apologized. And after that, he was on Fatima's side. Whereas so far, Oruç hasn't apologized to anything. And I get it. It's the pride that's been ingrained in him as the next head of the Furtuna family. You don't bow your head towards anyone. But Zarife all the time putting him up as the reis of the Furtuna family. And, Shirin Furtuna as well, putting expectations on his head. And, he's probably never had to apologize for anything. And he feels like everything's justified. But it does kind of leave a bad taste in the mouth, because this girl who he knows is looking for her family like crazy. Like she literally survived being shot at, stayed in trap zone despite being kicked out, not being fed, being attacked because she wanted to find her mum. And despite all of that, he knows who's responsible for her suffering. He knows who her parents are, and he's still withholding that information from her. And then he goes to her and asks her to come back just to save his family, and not an apology in sight. He's still going after Eleni. He's still bantering with her. He's still pulling her around. Like literally in episode 12, pulled Eleni into a room and had a conversation with her about why she didn't reveal Save John's truth before. Not apologizing, it's still fine, but the entitled act that he's pulling on over here, where he wants Eleni to confront her worst truths, like Eleni being strong and rejecting Oruç, I was proud of her for doing that. But then on the other hand, Oruç is we need some background information, people, and we need it now, because this is not going well. I do like them together, but I need to understand more of the situation before I form an opinion, because at this point, Oruç is not winning anything. Show us more about this guy, his childhood, how he's gotten to this point, how things have been for him. If we know more about him, we'll be able to form an opinion about him. Like we saw it ourselves, how the whole thing went down. So we understand and we feel more for Esme. We hate Hijran more for that, and we hate Zarife and Sheriff more for that. Even in the beginning, when Zarife basically signed a death order for Eleni, and Esme was like, my daughter's dead. And Zarife was consoling her, even though she herself was on the verge of crying herself, because she knows that your daughter's alive, but we just killed her. So she's technically dead now, and I'm sorry for that, but I can't really say anything because we know what will happen when the whole thing blows up. So we have some context over there. I'm not saying Zarife redeemed herself at any point. She didn't. She's a bad character, and I hope she pays for this. And Hijran too. Like I hope she pays for it. And I'm refusing to ship her with Gesep, because Gesep deserves so much better. My point was that we need to see more about Oruç with his family as a child, as a teenage, as an adult. We need to see the circumstances that he's been in. And I think the same goes for Eleni as well. They're breaking character a little, because why did Eleni walk into the Furtuna's house and declare herself as a hostage and argued with Adil to release Iso? Otherwise she won't leave the house. Like what was all that about? Because the Furtunas kidnapped Fatima for a piece of land that their own granny handed over to Adil herself. So Fatima had nothing to do with it, but they still kidnapped her. Kept her in way worse conditions than Iso was. Iso walked into his own kidnapping. And he was treated like a guest. Like he was given choice of food. He was nicely catered to. They didn't even tie his hands and feet. He was just standing there waiting to be rescued. And the only thing that they asked in return was Sheriff's coordinates. Because for sure, if they're desperate, they would try and find Sheriff and hand them over to the Koçaris, which was something that they were counting on. But Eleni walking over to the Furtunas and being all like, I'm a hostage over here, did not make sense at all. Because why would she do that? And I am getting a little bit tired about the whole Eleni being a good person thing, because I get it in the beginning, because Eleni coming from Greece, she probably would have got a big culture shock with all the bullets flying around in trap zone, and getting herself almost killed twice puts people in a mood. I completely get it. And her acting out with Adil was because she felt comfortable in the house. I think she probably acted out in her own home in Greece as well, but her mum would have probably been like, oh, Eleni wants some space, let's give her some space. And Eleni is probably just acting out because she wants her mum to come mum, ask her like, why are you angry? What can we do to make up for it, rather than just leaving her be and probably just like it'll pass thing. So I guess it's a little bit deserved towards the character in the beginning, but Eleni came to Trab Zone of her own violation the second time. She left and she came back because she wanted to be part of the Koçari family. She thinks of the Koçaris as her own, but then she explicitly went against the Koçaris when she went to the Furtuna mansion and declared herself as a hostage, which I do not at all understand the logic behind. And I think at some point I need Adil to have this talk with Eleni that, what are you even doing here? Why are you standing against your own family for these people who would waste no chance at shooting us in the back? Because Eleni went as a hostage, yes. At the next moment, the entire military came upon Adil and the Koçaris to take them in for the blowing up of the mansion. And Eleni was obviously pissed, but her first reaction was throw a fit rather than calling the police on Oruç and getting him arrested too for kidnapping. Because it would have been like, you deserve it. Because you put Adil in jail, I'll put you in jail too. But yeah, it's holes in logic and it does not make sense. And it pisses me off because you have characters who have been going according to their setup so far. And they've done very well, actually. Eleni being the practical one, Eleni understanding the ways, and Eleni slowly adapting to it. Because when Gökhan cornered all of them and when they were going towards the plateau to confront Bali's grandmother, old Eleni would have probably called the police for real. But Eleni at that point understood that, calling the police would actually put everybody in a pickle, including her own family. So she faked the police siren. So it's a way of telling you that, this person is growing, this person is slowly adapting to this place. And, at some point, Eleni even pointed a gun at Behçet and told her that, get me out of here. I'm leaving out of here alive. So she has it in her. She has that Koçari blood in her. And she can be fierce when she wants to. And I need that Eleni back. I'm tired of her being a backseat driver in her own story. Because Eleni pining after Oruç, when Oruç should be the one pining after Eleni after everything that he's done. Eleni should be raising her head high and walking away. And Oruç should run behind her, telling her he's sorry for all of the shit that he's done so far. Well, I guess it is what it is so far. And I really, really hope that, they do give us more backstory into Oruç and Iso. And the Furtuna family, I want to see them as kids. I want to see Fadime as a child with Adil. Because can you imagine when Adil went to jail? Fadime would have been a child. She lost her dad. We don't know about her mom, but she's probably lost her mom, or her mom left her. Something happened. And the only adult in her life, her brother, would have left her. And then the Yengi that was supposed to be there in her family, the mother figure, she's gone, abandoning her for the enemy clan. And it would have been so bad for her psyche because her support system is gone. And yes, Gezeb and Ilvi are her relatives, but that's her brother. She just lost her dad. Her mom's not there. Her brother's in jail and her Yeng is gone. And every time Esme and Fadime come face to face and Fadime acts out, my first reaction is like, why are you doing this? And my second reaction is that I do kind of understand where you're coming from because Fadime feels like Esme abandoned them. If you do hear some weird noises in the background, that's my dog enjoying her very fruitful nap. So please do ignore her. And Fadime probably felt like Esme abandoned them, the family, the Koçaris, for the enemy clan. And she's scared that, Esme comes back, everything's normal, her brother's finally gone back to normal. But then Esme leaves again for something or the other. This time her brother just falls off the deep end and doesn't come back. What happens then? The only family that she has left in this world is gone. And I do kind of understand that. I think it's also nice in the way they talked about succession within the Koçari family, because obviously Adil doesn't have any kids so far that are known to the Koçaris, and Fadime would probably face resistance if she were to take over. So it would most probably be Fadime's child or Fadime's son taking over, while Fadime is sort of ahead along with her husband, which I'm guessing. But I think Adil's plan at the moment is to put Gezeb in a position of power, because Amirum Day would obviously support Fadime, and Gezeb, having control of the chai factory, would be in a good position to support Fadime if push comes to shove and Fadime has to take over, and would support her until the whole thing is resolved and Fadime has full control of the Koçari family. I think it's nice that they're discussing it rather than having it up in the air, because Koçaris have money and Adil does not have an heir, so there's bound to be some push towards Adil to get married, have a child, or probably Fadime to get married and have a child, so that the Koçari line doesn't die out with them, because Gezeb and Ilve are still cousins. They're not direct head of the Koçaris, and what's to say other Koçari siblings don't come in and try to take over. We don't know how many Koçaris are there. And Gökhan is probably going to turn out to be Koçari as well from the looks of it. So that's one more added to the line of succession. So I think it'll be interesting to see the Koçari side as well. So Eleni, once she's recognized as Adil's child, would be the next in line to take over the Koçaris. And I think that would probably put her in contention with Oruç, who's next in line to take over the Furtunas. So the clan heirs getting married would probably be a big thing. But yeah, that's something for future. Zarife asking for Eleni's hand in marriage for Oruç. And technically, Eleni is supposed to be Hicran's daughter. Hicran is Zarife's cousin, aunt's child. So Eleni is technically, at the moment, Oruç's cousin. Distant cousin, but cousin still. And nobody is finding this awkward, especially Eleni. Because once Eleni found out that Hicran is a mum, I was kind of waiting for her to realize that technically Oruç is now my cousin. I've been crushing on my cousin this entire time. It's very bad of me, I know, but I don't know if they'll ever bring it up, because I know they're not cousins in reality, because Eleni is obviously Esme and Ada's child. But I think someone needs to point out that you're technically asking for Oruç's cousin's hand in marriage for Oruç. But it's an interesting observation, I think. And I do like the way they've set up the stage for an internal feud within the Furtuna family. Like when Sheriff was initially released from prison, he was going to the chai factory and he noticed Zarife's name on the door. And in front of the desk as well, where technically it should have been Sheriff's name, because he's still the head of the Furtuna family until Oruç takes over. But Zarife has very happily taken his name off of everything and put her own, because she's running the whole show now. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why she was very much happy to cooperate with Sheriff, because as being a widow would have probably not left her with much of resources within the Furtuna family. So she slowly built up her own repertoire by taking over the chai factory in Sheriff's absence and basically put her name across everything. I run the show. And when Sheriff saw that, he subtly lingered around over there for a moment, and then he came in and then he saw the name and they emphasized it really well. I think that's something that paid off in the recent episodes, because Zarife was more than happy to have Sheriff thrown on the bus in cooperation with Hicran, because she wanted Sheriff off the table. And obviously they didn't succeed, and the first thing Sheriff did after making his comeback is take Zarife's name off the door and off the desk and basically replace it with his own. So it's an internal conflict within the Furtuna family where Zarife wants control under Oruç's name, because she knows that Oruç would probably hand over the reins to her and go do whatever he wants to do. So Zarife would ultimately rule over, and Sheriff wants that to be his, because in having control of the Furtuna family, he can have Esme by his side. So I think it would be interesting to see what kind of games that these two play, because so far Sheriff hasn't turned on Zarife in the sense that he hasn't exposed her role in the whole kidnapping of Eleni and selling of that child, and basically having her paint out as the bad guy along with him. But let's see what happens in the coming episode, because obviously Zarife is going after Sheriff's seat, and Sheriff does not like that. And that is probably one of the reasons why Zarife is more than happy to bring in Furtuna brides from the Koçari side. Because had it been like episode 5 or 6, Zarife would have probably kicked Oruç and Iso out for having Koçaris as brides. But now she's more than happy and would probably stand on the door and wait for the bride to come home and give her grand welcome. So that's interesting. And every single time people get close to each other, I see that logo and I was like, that's it. That's all we're going to get. And my heart breaks a little, because Esme and Adil, I really, really, really do hope that they give us an internet Ozel for like something or the other, because I do from the bottom of my heart, I do wish for an internet Ozel, because while I'm very happy about the ratings, so that for once I don't have to worry about the ratings, and since it's a state-run channel, they do have more leeway, they do have a better budget, so for those things I'm a little bit grateful. But then had it been on another channel, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, I'm sorry. So yeah, the travesty of being on TRT1, I don't know how it'll go this Friday or in the long run, but I do hope that in the long run at least they let the characters stay true to themselves and not give us any sudden redemption arc for villains, especially the ones who really, really don't deserve it. And I hope they do keep up the quality of storytelling, because so far, while I do have some things to talk about, but overall I'm really enjoying it. And I'm having the blast catching up every Friday, and I'm eagerly looking forward to the next episode. And like I said, I'm absolutely 100% for all of the couples, and I would love to see how Iso and Father may end up getting together, and how Adil and Esme are going to react to the whole thing, because I loved Esme's reaction, and she's like proper scandalized, which is quite surprising, because she herself ran away with the Koçari boy and got married in the mosque. So being scandalized, I was like, lady, you did the same thing. And I was reading comments online like Iso should have come to Esme for help, since she's more experienced with the whole thing. It was funny, and I'm living for this. Like, I'm living for those awkward conversations, for those family time after your mansion has been blown up and you're just sitting around waiting for the next day to come, because obviously you can't do anything during the night and you just have to wait it out and see what happens when your crazy uncle shows up and tries to ruin your wedding. But yeah, it's fun, and I am living for the characters and how they interact with each other, because they do feel like human and they do talk like human, and I hope that they keep being humans. And I do hope that, we do have more scenes with the kids getting together. Eleni and Father May having a conversation and us seeing it. Eleni, Father May, Esau and Oruç getting together and solving crimes, tackling situations and basically being there for each other. Give us more of the kids. I'm tired of everybody screaming, crying and throwing up. Like, even if it's Father May's wedding with Esau and them torturing Esau over it. Like, I would like to see that. I would really like to see that because it's a change. Oruç and Eleni dealing with the fallout of him almost getting married to Sevcan. And then Esme and Adil kind of feeling for the whole situation because Esme is still very much married to Sheriff. And I'm sure while Sheriff would not hold Esme accountable for the whole thing, it is going to make him put more pressure on her to detach herself from the Koçaris and come by his side and become his only. Otherwise he would expose Adil for being a killer or whatever. And yes, I do hope we have some good, happy, or at least as happy as they can be episodes going forward. And I do hope they keep up the ratings because I'm living about not having to worry about the ratings every Saturday morning, which is not something that I can say about Rüya Gibi, which I've put on a pause because the ratings, they hurt my heart. Like, I haven't watched the last episode because I'm scared. Because the moment I started watching it live, the ratings just went on a free fall and I'm scared. Honestly, and at the moment I think Taşacak Deniz is my only happy place in Turkish drama land, and I hope it's the same for you guys as well. And going forward, I hope we have some good episodes coming up. And if you liked hearing me talk about Taşacak Deniz, you can check out my Yabani video on my podcast channel where I rant and rave about why Yabani, why, like really just why. And you can catch up on Talk About Drama episodes on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Audible and Amazon Podcast. Or you can just reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram. My ID is talk_about_drama and just tell me why is Isfat so captivating and addictive really, and why is it a travesty that Estelle is on TRT1, and why we need more information about Orel before we go forward with this. But yeah, hopefully you guys had a good time hearing me chat about Taşacak Deniz, and hopefully the episode this Friday goes well and we have more to talk about next time. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a good day and I will see you guys next time. Until then, ciao.